Good morning, friends. All the students, please pay attention. Last time we started with question number 5 of cash management. Please see question number 5 of cash management. In that question, we did working note. Now today we will do the answer part. All the students are requested to see question number 5 working note. Please see question number 5 working note. Today we will do the answer part of question number 5, that is preparation of cash budget. I am giving you 2 minutes to read the question and the working note done in the last session. Please go through it. Please see the question. We have to prepare cash budget for the months of May, June and July. Now please draw the format of cash budget. Make 4 columns. First column for particulars, then 3 columns for the months of May, June and July. We are writing rupees in thousand. All the students please see. We are taking rupees in thousand. Now first opening cash balance. Opening cash balance is 40,000. So write 40. Now add cash receipts. In this sum, there is only one source of cash receipt. So write down sales receipts. It is as given in the question. It is 401.7, 450.28 and 425.88. This is the first and the only source of cash receipt. Now deduct cash payments. Now in this sum there are 5 cash payment. First see working note 1 which we did in the last lecture. If you will see working note 1, you will find first labor cost payment, labor cost payment, refer working note 1. It is 86.10, 86.40 and 79.80. Second is variable overhead payment. Again refer the working note, variable overhead payment, refer working note 1. It is 26.60, 28.74 and 27.92. The third payment is material cost payment. Again refer working note 1. Material cost payment is 161.7, 172.5 and 166.20. The next payment is payment of fixed cost. Now the fixed cost per annum is 12 lakh rupees, but out of this 12 lakh rupees, 3 lakh rupees is depreciation, which is non-cash cost. So the cash cost per annum is 9 lakh rupees, and this fixed cost is spent evenly throughout the year. So per month fixed cost will be 9 lakhs upon 12, that is 75,000 per month. So fixed cost. Next is fixed cost. It is 12 lakhs, that is 1200, minus 3 lakhs, that is 300, divided by 12. So it is 75,000 per month. So please write 75, because we are writing rupees in thousand. And the next is capital expenditure. It is in the month of June. It is 1,90,000, that is 190. Capital expenditure. $190 in the month of June. So hereby we finish all the cash receipt and all the cash payments. Now please find out closing cash balance. So it is total cash payments. So closing cash balance will be A minus B. Now please make total of receipt and payment. In the month of May, total receipt will be 441.70. Total payment will be 349.4. So closing cash balance will be 92.30, which will become opening balance of June. Total receipt of June will be 542.58. Total payment will be 552.64. So there will be overdraft of 10.06 in the month of June. Total receipt of June will be 415.82. Total payment will be 348.92 and closing cash balance will be 66.90. All the students are requested to write this. So by it we finished sum number 5. Last time we did working note and today we have finished the answer part. Now the students are requested to ask their query if any. Otherwise we will switch over to next sums. Now I hope there is no query, so we will proceed further. Now all the students, please pay attention. Initially when I started this chapter, I had told you that there are 4 strategies of cash management. The first strategy of cash management is cash planning, and cash planning can be done by preparing cash budget. So from sum number 1 to 5 we prepared cash budget. So the first strategy is over. Now we will go for the second strategy. First I will explain theory and then we will do sums relating to the second strategy of cash management. The first strategy of cash management is cash planning, and cash planning can be done by preparing cash budget. And therefore first we started with preparation of cash budget, that is sum number 1 to 5. Now the second strategy of cash management is controlling cash flows. If you want to manage cash, then first you have to do cash planning and thereafter you have to control the cash flows. These cash flows are of two types. One is cash inflow and another is cash outflow. So if you want to control cash flows, you have to control cash inflow as well as cash outflow. Now when you control cash inflow, our purpose while controlling cash inflow is to maximize the cash inflow. So every businessman wants to maximize the cash inflow, and we want the inflow to be fast, means we want to collect the money fast. Say for example, if you have to collect money from a person after 30 days, then you will always desire that you collect it fast, either on 29th day or 28th day likewise. So our main focus in controlling cash inflow is always to maximize the inflow and to collect the inflow fast. Same way, when you control cash outflow, in cash outflow we always try to minimize the outflow and we want to delay the outflow. So today we will focus that how to make the inflow fast, and then we will do sums relating to how to make the inflow fast. So first we will deal with the theory. To make the inflow fast, there are two techniques, and before we start those techniques in theory, I request all the students to see page number 1 of this cash management chapter, that is page number 107. Please see page number 107. First I will discuss theory for controlling cash flows, and then we will start with sums which will be related with how to make the inflow fast. Now please see first page of your chapter cash management. I am giving you 2 minutes just to read the first 3 and 4 paragraph. There is one word called float. Please see what is meaning of float and what is meaning of collection float and payment float. Then what is meaning of billing float, mailing float, check processing float and bank processing float. Now all the students please pay attention. First, meaning of float. Float means the time gap between any two events. Now these floats are of two types. So first we will define what is collection float and what is payment float. The meaning of only float is it is a time gap between any two events. Now what is collection float? Collection float is the time gap between the day of actual sale of goods and the day on which you actually receive the money. Suppose you are selling the goods today, then due to some reason it may not be possible to get the money today only. Suppose it takes 6 days to get the money, then you can say that my collection float is of 6 days. So collection float can be defined as the time gap between the day of sale of your goods and the day on which you actually receive the money. That time gap is called collection float. It means you take 6 days to collect the money. Now This collection float exists because of four reasons. So, any of these or all the reasons may be present. So, the total collection float is divided into four parts. So, one by one we will understand it. First part of this collection float is billing float. Billing float means the time taken by the organization or company to prepare the invoice after the day of sale. Suppose I am selling the goods today and I am preparing the invoice today itself, then my billing float is 0 because I am not delaying in preparing the invoice or bill. But suppose I am selling the goods today but I am preparing invoice after 1 day, then my billing float will be of 1 day. So it is the time gap between the date of sale and the date of preparation of invoice. The second is mailing float. This mailing float is of two types, mailing outward float and mailing inward float. Mailing outward float means the time taken by the organization to send the bill to the customer after it is prepared. Suppose the bill is prepared after 1 day, so our billing float is say this 1 day. After preparing the bill, if you deliver the bill to the customer and if it takes time, then your mailing outward float will be of that much time. Say for example, the customers are next to your door, then to deliver the bills to them, the mailing time will be 0. So mailing outward float will be 0. But suppose your customers are located in some other city and it takes 1 day to send the bill by courier. So mailing outward will be of 1 day. So the day on which you send the bill, immediately it will not be received by the customer because he is stationed at some other place. Same way there is mailing inward float. After he receives the bill, it may happen that when he sends the check to the company, it may take again 1 day because he is stationed at some other place, correct? So total mailing float is of 2 days. Now it is not necessary that always there will be mailing float. If the customer is next to your door, then mailing outward float and mailing inward float both may be 0. The third one is check processing float. After we receive the check from the customer, we have to process the check before we deposit it into the bank. Now check processing float is the time gap between the day on which you receive the check till you deposit it into the bank. Now after receiving the check, when you deposit it into the bank, sometimes it may happen that you may deposit the check on the same day. So check processing float will be 0. But if you deposit after 1 day, then it will be 1 day. If you deposit after 2 days, then it will be 2 days likewise, correct? There may be delay in check processing because after receiving the check, first you have to categorize the check into 3 types of check. One is same branch check, then second is outstation check, and third is local check. So same branch check, local check and outstation check. These 3 types of check you have to segregate, sort out, and thereafter for each type of check you have to prepare paying slip, and then you have to drop these 3 types of checks separately in the check boxes kept in the bank. So this may take some time. Suppose it takes 1 day. So check processing float is of 1 day. Means the day on which you receive the check, after 1 day you are depositing it into the bank. And last is bank processing float. Bank processing float is the time gap between the day on which you deposit the check and the day on which you get clear balance of that check into your bank account. Suppose I deposit the check today and I have an account in the same bank where the issuer has the bank account. Then it will not take much time. Within 1 hour the transfer of balance will be there. So check processing, bank processing float will be 0. But suppose I deposit the check into a local bank and the bank of the issuer is also in the same city, then it may take 1 day. Same way, if it is an outstation check, then it may take 2 or 3 days because the check is cleared through the clearing house. So, to clear the check, how many days are taken? That is called bank processing float. Suppose it takes 2 days because it is an outstation check. Now add all these four, 1, 2, 1 and 2. So total number of days is 6. So my total collection float is of 6 days, which is comprising of billing float 1 day, then mailing float 2 days, check processing float 1 day and bank processing float 2 days. It means the day on which I sell the goods, I get clear fund in my bank account after 6 days. So float means the time gap and collection float means the time gap in collecting your money from the day of sale. I hope it is clear. If there is any doubt, you may ask me. So by this we finish what is collection float and what are the various parts of collection float. Now our purpose is to reduce this collection float because we want to collect the money fast. So suppose our collection float is 6 days, then to collect the money fast we have to reduce this collection float to either 4 days or 3 days or 2 days. So while controlling cash flow and particularly while controlling cash inflow, our intention is to reduce this float. Only then we can collect the money fast. Now next is payment float. Just like collection float, payment float has also time gap. So payment float is one type of float, so there is time gap between two events. Now payment float means the time gap between the day on which you issue the check and the day on which actually your bank balance is reduced by the bank. Suppose I issue check today, then today itself my bank balance will not be reduced because of some practical reasons. That reasons may be any. Suppose the person to whom I have issued the check, he keeps it for 2 days and he do not deposit it. Then 2 days are wasted and after 2 days, suppose he deposits and it comes to my bank through the clearing house for clearing and suppose it takes 2 more days. So total it is of 4 days. So payment float means the time gap between the day on which you issue the check and the day on which actually your bank balance is reduced by your banker. That is called payment float. Now our purpose is how to reduce the collection float and how to increase the payment float. To make the cash outflow delayed, we deliberately want to increase the payment float, and to collect the money fast or to collect the cash inflow fast, we want to reduce the collection float. Now how to reduce this collection float? For that there are two techniques. One is concentration banking and second is lockbox system. So first we will do theory of the techniques of reducing the collection float and thereafter we will do sum number 8 and 9 because they relate to this reduction of collection float. Now please see your module. Next page, that is page number 107. First read concentration banking. This is one of the technique of reducing collection float. Now all the students, please pay attention. Concentration banking, it is one of the technique of reducing the collection float. Now first, to which type of business this concentration banking technique is applicable or useful? Concentration banking is useful to those companies whose customer base is scattered over a very large geographical area. If the customer base of the company is scattered only in a specified area, then this technique will not help. So, first of all, your customer base should be scattered over a very large geographical area. Say for example, the head office of the company is situated say in Ahmedabad, and the customer base of the company is scattered over all of the regions or state of India. Then we can say that the customer base is scattered over very large geographical area, and so we can apply this technique. Now second is how this technique works, that is modus operandi. How this technique will work, what are the steps to implement this technique. So first I will explain you this modus operandi, and then we will discuss that how the time is saved in collecting money through the concentration banking system. Now the modus operandi is, first of all, you open your own collection centers at various places where your customer base is scattered. Say for example, you are opening collection center in various capital cities of various states. So first is open your own collection center on at various cities or at various regions where your scattered customer base is scattered. The second point is, after opening your own collection center at various places, you also open bank account wherever your collection centers are open. Say for example, if collection center is opened in Bombay, then you have to also open a bank account in Bombay, that is local bank. The third one is, thereafter whenever the sale is made from HO to various customers located at various places, you have to instruct the customers to henceforth drop the check in the local collection center instead of sending directly to the head office, which the customers were doing so far. So while selling the goods to the customers located at various areas, ask them not to send the check directly to HO, but to drop the check or deposit the check of their payment in the local collection center. And thereafter, next step is, the executive of your local collection center should be informed to deposit the checks on daily basis to the local bank. So every day whatever check will come in a particular collection center, the collection center executive will collect the check and will deposit the check on the same day in the local bank, and local bank is asked to transfer the funds in the bank account at the HO on daily basis, telegraphically or through any other means whereby fund transfer takes place. So thereby the funds will be collected in HO bank account very fast. So this is the modus operandi. So first, open collection center. Second, open bank account wherever collection centers are open. Third, ask the customers not to send the check directly to HO, but to drop the check in the local collection center. Then local collection center executive should deposit the check on daily basis in the local bank, and the local bank should be asked to transfer the surplus fund after keeping the necessary amount in the bank account kept at HO. So by this the fund collection will become fast at HO. So this is how this concentration banking system works. So the total collection float will be reduced by some days if this technique is adopted. Now if there is any doubt, student may ask this, otherwise we will go for the second technique, that is lockbox system. I think there is no doubt. So all the students are requested to read logbox system for 2 minutes. Now all the students please pay attention. Just like concentration banking, first the applicability of this system. Logbox system is useful only for those companies where the customer base is scattered over a very large geographical area. And the second one, its modus operandi, means how this logbox system is operated. Continue the old example. Suppose the HO of the company is situated at Ahmedabad. Now to implement this logbox system, first of all, the company has to hire logboxes in the local post office of the bank. Instead of opening its own collection center, now the company will hire logbox in the local post office. In post offices, logbox are available on rent. So company will open logboxes at various centers or cities, and it will hire those logboxes in the local post office. Second step is, wherever logboxes are hired, the company has to open bank account in those cities where logboxes are hired. So modus operandi more or less remains same, just like concentration banking. After opening bank account in the local place where logboxes are hired, the company will instruct all the customers to henceforth drop the check in the local logbox instead of sending the check to the head office. And next is, the local bank is authorized to open this logbox once or twice daily and collect the check from the logbox and deposit it into the bank. You know that nowadays bank provide agency services. So here the bank or the local bank will open the logbox because the bank is authorized to do so, and on daily basis the bank will take the checks from logboxes once or twice daily, and it will deposit the check in the bank, and then the bank is authorized to transfer the funds telegraphically or through any other means to the bank account at HO. So thereby the fund collection at bank account of HO will become fast. So here only difference between concentration banking and logbox is, in concentration banking the company opens its own collection center where the company employs its own employee, which is collection center executive, but here the company need not open its own collection center, it need not hire any employee, rather it will hire a logbox in the local post office, and the local bank will act as the agent of the company, and the bank will collect the check and deposit it into the bank, and then the surplus fund will be transferred to the bank account at HO. So thereby the collection of funds from all the regions will become fast, and the funds will be transferred to HO account fast. So by this we finish what is logbox system and how it works to reduce your collection float. Now the students may ask their query, otherwise we will do sum number 8 and then sum number 9. This sum number 8 and 9 relates to concentration banking and logbox system, which are the techniques for reducing your collection float. I hope there is no doubt. Now the students are requested to read question number 8 on page number 116. Please see question number 8. Now while reading question number 8, you have to find out that in this particular question, which technique, that is concentration banking or log box, which technique is used, and second, which are various collection floats given in the question. So read it carefully for 2 minutes and find out both the answers. Now all the students are requested to make one correction in point number A. In point number A it is written determine the reduction. Now cancel this word reduction and please write release, RELEASE. So the question is determine the release in cash balances that can be achieved through the use of log box system. Now all the students please pay attention, I am explaining the question. This company is right now having a central billing system and central collection system. It means the bills are generated at HO and the customers are right now making payments from various areas to the HO, head office. Now in this question two collection floats are given. One is mailing float and another is check processing float. Right now, when I say right now means when this logbox system is not adopted. Right now, the mailing float of the company is 4 days. And right now, the check processing float of the company is 1.5 days. It means right now the total collection float of the company is 5.5 days. And if the company installs logbox system, then due to installation of logbox system, the mailing float is reducing by 2.5 days and the check processing float is reducing by 1 day. It means the total reduction in collection float is 3.5 days. So after reduction of this 3.5 days, means after installation of logbox system, the total collection float will become of 2 days only. So from 5.5 days it will reduce down to 2 days. It is like this. All the students please write with me particulars mailing float, check processing float and total float, that is total collection float. Right now means before installation of logbox system, the mailing float is 4 days and check processing float is 1.5 days. So, total collection float is of 5.5 days. Less reduction due to lockbox system. Due to lockbox system, the mailing float is reduced by 2.5 days. Check processing float is reduced by 1 day. So, total reduction is of 3.5 days. So, after lockbox system is adopted, the mailing float will be of only 1.5 days, check processing float will be of only half day and total float will be of 2 days. So, there is a total reduction of 3.5 days in the collection float. Now, for doing the sum, this 3.5 days is important. What was the collection float previously and what is the collection float right now, they are irrelevant, but due to adopting lockbox system, how many days of float is reduced, that is important. So, the main data for us is reduction in total collection float, that is 3.5 days. Now, depending on this data and other data given in the question, we will do answer A, B and C. In the question, it is given that the daily turnover of cash is rupees 5 lakhs. It means the cash receipt or the cash payment, whatever it may be, the turnover may be of cash inflow or cash outflow. Here it is turnover of cash inflow, that is collection of cash. So, average collection of cash per day is 5 lakh rupees. So, keeping in mind this average collection of 5 lakh rupees of cash per day and keeping in mind the reduction in collection float and keeping in mind the rate of interest given in the question, we have to answer 3 questions. So, first answer A. Question A says that determine the release in cash balances that can be achieved through the use of lockbox system. So, release in cash balance due to lockbox is equal to daily collection of cash is 5 lakhs and the collection float is reduced by 3.5 days. So, daily or 1 day's collection 5 lakh into 3.5 days is equal to rupees 17 lakhs 50,000. Now, all the students, please interpret this 17 lakhs 50,000. This 17 lakhs 50,000 is that money which was locked up or which was tied up in the float, but due to adoption of lockbox system, this amount is received by you earlier. Mind well that due to lockbox system, we are not getting extra amount or excess amount of 17 lakhs 50,000. The amount of cash which we are receiving is same, but we are receiving this money earlier. So, due to adoption of lockbox system, on an average, due to reduction in collection float by 3.5 days, we are getting 17 lakhs 50,000 earlier, but not more. So, if we receive this 17 lakhs 50,000 rupees earlier, then on this we can earn interest. So other way we can say that if we do not receive this money earlier, we will be the loser of interest, we will lose the interest. So in present system we are losing interest on it, but due to adoption of lockbox system the money is received by us earlier, so we will earn interest on it, so we will save the interest. So second question relates to that. Second question says that determine the opportunity cost of the present system if the rate of interest is 5%. Now opportunity cost of present system is equal to the benefit of lockbox system, both are same. So second is opportunity cost of present system, that is equal to benefit of lockbox system is equal to 17,50,000 we are receiving earlier, and on this we can earn interest of 5% per annum. So into 5%, so it is rupees 87,500. So on an average we are losing 87,500 per month if we follow the present system, that is central billing system. But if we adopt lockbox system, then we are able to save this much of interest. So whatever is the loss of present system becomes the benefit of lockbox system. Now the third question is, if the annual cost of installation of this lockbox system is 75,000, should such a system be initiated? So the third answer, cost of lockbox is equal to rupees 75,000, and we know that benefit of lockbox system is 87,500 per annum. So here the benefit of lockbox is more than the cost of the lockbox, so the difference will be the profit. So hence the net benefit of lockbox is equal to 87,500 minus 75,000, that is rupees 12,500. If the cost of the lockbox is higher than the benefits from the lockbox, then it will give you a net loss. So lockbox system should not be adopted. But here the net benefit is more than the cost, benefit is more than the cost. That's why this system is giving you a net benefit of 12,500. So our conclusion will be, so write down in point number C the conclusion. The conclusion is the lockbox system should be initiated because it gives net benefit of rupees 12,500. By this we finish question number 8. Now the students may ask if there is any doubt. I hope there is no doubt. So all the students are requested to read question number 9. Now all the students, please pay attention. First I am explaining this question and then we will start with the answers. This question says that daily average receipt or cash receipt of this company is 40 lakhs, and right now this company is having centralized billing system, and the company desires first to start concentration banking system. And question says that if the concentration banking system is installed, then the total collection float will reduce by 2 days. Means what is the collection float before and what is the collection float after, it is not given. We are directly given that what will be the reduction in collection float, and it is the point which we need. In last sum, the reduction in collection float was 3.5 days. Here it is directly given that reduction in collection float or collection period will be of 2 days due to adoption of this concentration banking system. Now this concentration banking system will cost 75,000 per annum, and the rate of interest of the company is 8%. It is also told that the company is looking for the possibility of adoption of lockbox system also. If the lockbox system is adopted, then the reduction in collection period will be 4 days, and the annual cost of lockbox system will be 1,20,000. Now depending on this data given, we have to answer 5 questions. The first question is, how much cash would be released with the concentration banking system? So first answer, cash released due to concentration banking is equal to daily turnover is 40 lakhs and multiplied by 2 days, because in concentration banking the collection period reduced is only 2 days. So it will be rupees 80 lakhs. It means 80 lakhs of rupees we will receive earlier, not more. Just like last sum, these 80 lakhs which are right now tied up in the collection float will be received by us earlier by 2 days. Second question, how much money can be saved due to reduction in collection period by 2 days? And there is another question in point number 2, should the firm institute the concentration banking system? Now, the first answer, money saved means interest saved. Due to concentration banking, the savings in interest will be, so savings in interest due to concentration banking is equal to 80 lakhs multiplied by 8%, so it is 6 lakhs 40,000 per annum. Now this is the benefit of log concentration banking system. Now it should be compared with its cost. The cost of concentration banking system is 75,000. Cost of concentration banking is equal to rupees 75,000. Now if we compare the benefit and the cost, we find that there is a net benefit. So net benefit of concentration banking is equal to 6,40,000 minus 75,000 is equal to, it is 5,65,000. Now as there is net benefit, the system should be implemented or may be implemented. So our decision of point number 2 is the firm can implement concentration banking. Hence, the firm may implement concentration banking system because it gives net benefit of 5,65,000. Now see the third question. Third question says that how much would cash be freed? Freed means released by lockbox system. So third answer, cash released due to lockbox system is equal to 40 lakhs multiplied by 4 days. In lockbox system, the reduction in collection float is of 4 days. So it is rupees 1 crore 60 lakhs. So cash released due to lockbox system is 1 crore 60 lakhs. It means we will receive 1 crore 60 lakhs rupees earlier, but not more. Now question number 4, how much can be saved with lockbox system? It means what is the interest saving due to lockbox system? So fourth answer, savings in interest due to lockbox is equal to 1 crore 60 lakhs multiplied by 8%. So it comes to rupees 12 lakhs 80,000. Now we can see that the cost of this lockbox system is 1,20,000. So write down cost of lockbox system is equal to rupees 1,20,000. Hence, net benefit from lockbox system is equal to 12,80,000 minus 1,20,000, that is 11,60,000. So we can see that in answer to, the net benefit of concentration banking is 5,65,000, but if we adopt the logbook system, then the net benefit in point number 4 is rupees 11,60,000. Now question number 5, it asks you that between these two, between the concentration banking and logbook system, which is better? So to decide which is better, we must compare the net benefit given by both. So the net benefit given by the logbook system is more than the net benefit given by concentration banking system. So we can conclude that the logbook system is better than concentration banking system because it gives higher net benefit of rupees 11,60,000. It gives higher net benefit of rupees 11,60,000. Now by this we finish question number 9. Now the students are requested to ask if there is any query. I hope there is no doubt. So by this we finish the second strategy of cash management, and that was controlling the cash flows. And in controlling cash flow we saw that how to control cash inflow and outflow, and while controlling cash inflow, how to make the cash inflow fast. To make the cash inflow fast, we should reduce the collection float, and relating to collection float we did sum number 8 and 9. Now before we do sum number 6 and 7, first we will discuss certain theory relating to strategy 3 and strategy 4 of cash management. The third strategy of cash management is determining optimum level of cash balance, and fourth strategy of cash management is investment of surplus cash or managing the deficit of cash. I repeat, the first strategy was cash planning, and it can be done by preparing cash budget. The second strategy was controlling the cash flows. Now the third strategy is determining optimum level of cash balance. It means the cash balance on hand kept should be optimum, because if the actual cash balance is more than optimum or if it is less than optimum, then both the situations will create certain problems. So the cash on hand should be at optimum level. It should not be more than desired or required, and at the same time it should not be also less than required. That is called optimum level of cash. And how to determine optimum level of cash balance? For that there are certain theories which we will discuss. The fourth strategy of cash management is, if your actual cash on hand is more than the optimum cash balance. Suppose our actual cash balance is 1 lakh and the optimum cash balance is 80,000 rupees. Then the surplus of 20,000 rupees we must invest. So if the actual cash on hand is more than the optimum cash balance, then you have to invest the surplus cash on hand. Same way, if the actual cash balance on hand is less than the optimum cash balance on hand, then you have to manage the deficit of cash. Deficit means when the actual cash on hand is less than the desired or optimum cash balance, then there is shortage of cash, and that shortage of cash should be managed by issuing the by selling the short term securities. So here in investment, when there is surplus cash, we purchase short term securities or we invest money in short term securities, and when there is deficit of cash, these short term securities are sold out so that we can get cash and we can manage the deficit of cash. Now relating to this strategy 3 and 4, we will do sum number 6 and 7 after discussing the theories. Now all the students are requested to see page number 108. Please see page number 108. There is one question. Explain briefly William J. Bowmore's EOQ model for optimum cash balance. All the students are requested to read this theory first, and thereafter there is another theory on page number 109. Write short notes on the Miller-Orr cash management model. But right now you have to read only this William J. Bowmore's EOQ model of optimum cash balance. I am giving you 2 minutes to read, and thereafter I will explain this. Now all the students, please pay attention. Today, in the time permitted, first we will discuss that why this model is called EOQ model. You might be knowing that in inventory management there is one model called EOQ model. EOQ model is used in inventory management. EOQ model of inventory management says that while purchasing stock or inventory in one order, you should order that many units which is equal to your EOQ, means economic order quantity. So in one order, that many units should be ordered, or order should be placed for that many units which is equal to your EOQ. And this economic order quantity is affected by two types of cost, that is inventory carrying cost and ordering cost. This inventory carrying cost and ordering cost both have relation with economic order quantity, but one has the direct relationship and one has the inverse relationship with economic order quantity. Suppose right now the order quantity is say 10,000 units. If you increase the quantity ordered, means in one order, if the quantity ordered is increased, then with that the ordering cost goes down, because the total number of order decreases. If your annual consumption remains constant and if in one order you order more units, then the number of order goes down, so ordering cost goes down. So you can say that ordering cost has inverse relationship with the quantity ordered. But when you increase the quantity ordered, the carrying cost goes up. So you can say that carrying cost has a direct relationship with the quantity ordered. Now if we try to reduce the first one, the other one goes up. Same way, if we try to reduce the other one, the first one will go up. For example, if you reduce the quantity ordered, say 8,000, then this ordering cost will go up and carrying cost will go down. So we are in dilemma that which quantity should be ordered. So we have to do a balancing act. Balancing act means we should order that many quantities in one order where the sum total of ordering cost and carrying cost is minimum. So that quantity should be ordered where the sum total of ordering cost and carrying cost is minimum, and that is called economic order quantity. Now the same concept is applied in this cash management according to this EOQ model of cash management. Here, instead of this EOQ, we have optimum transfer size. Optimum transfer size means if there is surplus cash and if you want to invest cash in one transaction, how much cash you should invest, that is called optimum transfer size of investment. Same way, if there is deficit of cash and if you want to make disinvestment, means selling the security and converting it to cash, then in one in one transaction, how much amount of securities should be disinvested and converted into cash, that is called optimum transfer size. And this optimum transfer size is affected by two types of cost. In this sum, these costs are fixed transaction cost and fixed holding cost. So this is affected by transaction cost and holding cost. Holding cost is also called interest cost or interest cost of cash on hand. If we hold the cash on hand, then on that cash we will lose the interest, that is called holding cost. And transaction cost means the cost which we will incur either for investing the cash into securities or for selling the securities and converting into cash. So whether we do the transaction of investment or the transaction of disinvestment, in both the situations we will have to incur transaction cost. Now these two costs affect this optimum transfer size. That's why this model is called EOQ model. Just like EOQ, you have to find out what is your optimum transfer size, and this optimum transfer size will be affected by these two types of costs, just like this carrying cost and ordering cost. So that's why this model of cash management is called EOQ model of cash management, because it resembles the EOQ model. Now next time we will discuss this EOQ model in detail, and thereafter we will do sum number 6 and 7 which relate to this EOQ model of cash management. Now the students may ask their query, if any. So next time, after doing this theory and sum number 8 and 9, we will do the balance theory, that is Miller-Orr cash management model, and thereafter this chapter will be over. I wish all of you a good day. Thank you.